Hi, Dr. Regan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth, just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now.
When you treat it like a transaction, it'll be rough, but when you treat it like a relationship, it can be beautiful.
Welcome to the Everyday Practices Podcast. I'm Regan Robertson, and my co-host, Dr. Chad Johnson, and I are on a mission to share the stories of everyday dentists who generate extraordinary results using practical, proven methods you can take right into your own dental practice. If you're ready to elevate patient care and produce results that are anything but ordinary, buckle up and listen in. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. I am your host, Regan Robertson, and we are having an international interview today from a national star in the United States, but she's abroad. Dr. Chad Johnson is with us as well. Hello, Chad. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm always doing fantastic, right?
Yes.
This particular topic, though, is really exciting to me because it is discussing associates and the cost of associates and the benefits and maybe the cons and maybe the challenges and roadblocks. I am going to be a fly on the wall, an observer today. Our guest is Dr. Maggie Augustyn. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fantastic. A practicing dentist out of Illinois. You may have heard her on the circuit. She's got some speaking coming up. You may have heard her in Singapore. You may have heard her at the Productivity Workshop and IGP Summit that just happened down in Texas just a couple of short weeks ago as well, or seen one of her many, many articles online. Dr. Maggie, you are a voice and you are transparent, and it's an honor to have you as a guest today.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So Chad, frame this for us with associates.
All right. So my background is I opened up straight out of school. So I have a bias from dental school as a business owner, not as an associate. I have never been an associate except to help someone out somewhere or, side gig kind of stuff here and there. So like I've had a couple technical fun associateship model ideas where I'm a guest at an office, but overall, I come from a bias of an owner. And so, Maggie, you wrote this article, and I could definitely see it from the owner's perspective. And I then was able to, through your verbiage crafting, you do a great job at your writing skills. So I was able to better understand it, but help lead us into understanding. I have a conclusion, but I'll kind of let you dial it in better once you've framed it. Give us the premise of your article and the symbiosis that's happening, the mutualism between an associate and the opportunity costs, and the business owner and the opportunity costs involved with both parties.
So part of the reason why I wrote this is because I had just hired an associate, and that puts us in an interesting scenario because both Chad and I hired the associate at the same time, which is what kind of drove the idea of recording this podcast. Now, unlike you, Chad, I was an associate, and my first job out of dental school, I worked for this fee-for-service doctor. He was incredible. He had all the bells and whistles. He was a great provider. Patients loved him. And I completely took it for granted. I was an arrogant new dentist, and I really thought that I knew everything. And I just wasted that incredible opportunity. My second associateship was in what you would consider now a DSO, working for very little money. I was getting paid $10 for a prophy, and my days were filled with literally 8 prophies. And now, yes, this was 2005, but I was taking home $80 a day. And it wasn't a great fit. And so that's what led me to open my office 18 years ago. And since then, I have not been an associate. But
Mhm.
looking at, it's interesting because I just kept going, right? I put in an ad. Well, we decided we were going to hire an associate. He put out an ad. I started interviewing and I hired my associate. And it wasn't until I started writing this article that I started to put in perspective, holy cow, this is actually costing a lot of money. And if you read that article, yes, there's the cost of putting together a contract, paying for an attorney, putting ads out. But really, then there's the coaching of the associate. Like we're with Productive Dentist Academy, so she was able to go online and do the modules, and that I paid her for watching that, right, rightfully so. And then the coaching with PDA, and that is a significant investment that my practice makes. That comes to her at no fee. So when I gathered all this documentation, when I looked at it, it cost about $100,000 for me to sit down, find the right person, and guide that associate
Yeah, I believe that
into
fully.
the following years. And I
Yes.
did not. So one, I am putting in perspective what I walked away from in my
Yeah.
first job, right? I mean, there's the paradox of I have no regrets, and oh my gosh, I can't believe I gave up on that opportunity, right? So you kind of live in that paradox of I shouldn't have, but it's okay that I did.
Yeah.
Um, but I had no idea what I'd given up until I really looked at those numbers, and I said, it's $100,000. And part of the reason why I'm coming up with that number is because I spend at least an hour a week with my associate, and I think it'll be longer now that she's come back from the productive dentist workshop. And while I'm spending the time with her, I'm not producing. Now, last month my production was like at $1,500 an hour, right? So you take that every week for a year, that adds up very quickly, and
Correct.
that's how I came up with that $100,000.
Yes. No, I have no qualm with that number. I mean, let's just say someone said, "Well, I did it for a bargain at 50,000." I mean, that you might be shooting yourself in the foot if you're not investing in the person. And someone might say, "I actually spent 250." I wouldn't be surprised, because if you sent someone off to some expensive courses, if you did 4 hours a week, let's say you did an hour a day of coaching. I mean, all that can add up. We've interviewed some people before who are producing 3 or 4,000 an hour. So, I mean, that would just take a half a year at 1 hour a week, so all that can add up really quick. When you, in the article in the first half, were talking about sowing seeds, and that it was like a seeds, the only thing that I thought of in a uh in a trance like dream state was that these seeds that we're planting can get up and hop to another farmer's field. That's the trouble with our
Oh my gosh, that is definitely something that is on my mind
yes.
very, very much. Now, the reward on that, even if we were to be like, oh crap, oops, sorry, didn't mean to. um,
It's okay. The FCC is not overseeing us.
Even if, and I worry about that too. Um, if the associate moves somewhere else and they take all the knowledge that we've given them, the beauty in that is that we have helped prepare that clinician to ultimately do good somewhere else.
Yes.
Right. And then the other thing about the $100,000 is it opened my eyes to actually how much effort I have to put into this.
Yes.
Because it's like when we ask a patient to spend $7,000 on an implant, and I always tell them, treat it like you have a $7,000 watch, like legit, floss around there, brush around there, because surgery around it is expensive. I got to treat my associate like it is $100,000 investment.
Yes.
And that was a mind shift for me. They're not disposable. They're just not something that you can get rid of and get another one tomorrow. I mean, you could, but it's going to cost you
Yes.
money.
And it's tough because we want to say, don't put baby in the corner, but then sometimes that baby is, and it's not meant to be derogatory, but if this baby is being obstinate or pretentious or stuff like that, precocious in their like I'm important, it's just like come on, so that's tough too. Is the very baby that you shouldn't put in the corner is also giving you a little attitude, or something like that, where it's just like, come on, would you work with me? Regan, your thoughts?
Well, Maggie answered my question. You said a little bit back, you said you would have no qualms in spending or investing the $100,000. And the hiccup point for me on that was, well, that's your relationship with money and investing too. So I don't think everybody has that opinion of, I have no qualms with that. So on all the, podcasts that we've done together, you do boldly go forward and bravely go forward. And you have that abundance mindset that says, if I lose it, I'll get it back. And then there's others who are far more risk adverse. And so Maggie, you just answered that for me. How do you wrap your head around it? Well, you treat it like your $7,000 watch. So you give it the appropriate weight so that you value it, whatever it is that will help you translate that and understand that that's the weight that you give it. Yeah.
And you're always going to get complete transparency from me. So I'm not going to lie to you. There are moments where, you're thinking, I should have taken that money and spent it on something else. What am I doing here? Like in the moments where it's just not going well, there is fear associated with hiring an associate and keeping them with you and training them, and the amount of work and ultimately, are you going to get hurt? Right? Like, is this person just going to walk away from you when you're trying to give them the best that you can? That scares me. That scares me too. Are they going to bring out the best in you? Are they going, there's this, I was talking to a couple of friends and I said, when did mediocrity become the new excellence? Because I feel like I am finding that in people. Chad and I, we've been practice owners for a very, very long time. Our mindset is very different. Like the other day, Chad shared that he went to the office a couple of times to and spent some significant time in looking for patients to place implants in.
Right.
I don't know that I would find an associate that could do that. And I don't mean to be making a disparaging generalization. It truly is just my experience. But these new kids, they just have an entirely different mindset. They don't have ownership. Ownership changes the way that you look at things.
Oh my gosh, it does so much. And think about when you said you started out as an associate and you were very cocky. I feel like that's my tale. As soon as I started at a newspaper right out of high school, and the arrogance that I had astounds me to this day. I mean, I had no portfolio, I had no proof, and I just thought, oh, but just you wait, I'm just the bee's knees, and I had no idea. So when I think about who had to manage me, on air apology for anyone, I think I was probably difficult. I was constantly jockeying for a raise or a better position. I mean, I had the world as my oyster. And so Chad, thinking about some of the associates today, or, we could call them the kids these days. I think there's differences in generational. We know that as a fact because of the technology and what's available to them and socioeconomics and all that stuff. But it's still a lot the same. They're going to go after it. And how can we be as leaders? Because I had some amazing leaders that looked past that. They were able to see and know what I was going for and nurtured it in a really gentle and firm way at times. It was really fascinating. So my question to both of you is, as you have your associates or as you have over the years, what are some of the ways where you've caught yourself and you say, oh, okay, they're being cocky or they're being a little bit entitled. How do I lead them in a productive way?
Such a good question. I am rough around the edges, and I can sometimes write a sentence without being padded of compassionate language and send that out. And really, it depends how the other person receives it, right? So I did that the other day with my associate. I wrote her like 3 sentences, and then my partner says, dude, that's not going to be taken the right way. And so what I did is I supported that with a Marco Polo, and I was able to show her what I looked like as I was saying those things. But I mean, some of the things that happen, and I think I did the same things when I was an associate myself, is if something isn't working out well, for example, a kid comes in and you've given them 3 carps of anesthetic and they're still numb. Now you're a newer doctor. You don't know if this is a patient management issue, if they're sincerely in pain, which is why I stopped treating kids. That paradox of they're numb, they're not, is what got to me. But, so the associate can say, your anesthetic isn't working correctly. I think you have a bad batch, right? And what are the chances of that? We've been using the same anesthetic that 2 other doctors are using it. It's been working fine. Is it possible? Yes. But it's just rather unlikely. So kind of combating, or these crowns are not staying in. I think it's your cement. Again, well, is it really? We've been using it and it's been fine. So the advice I've received is just to placate the associate by having their favorite cement there. And but it gets tricky, because they themselves are a doctor. They have a license. They have the right to create and perform treatment that they think is fit. How does your opinion fit in to that whole thing? And how do you address that with the associate?
Autonomy versus coddling.
Really delicate.
Yeah.
Well, and you just were talking a lot about relationships, Maggie. Like, to me, that was all about relationships. Giving a Marco Polo, which is a great app. If you don't know what it is, it's a video app. I've been lured to it a few times, and I choose not to make the time for it, but it is a really great app. And so context is everything. And words, even with smileys and emojis, can be taken the wrong way. And generationally speaking, even, a thumbs up can be considered offensive.
Which is hilarious to me.
Of course it is, you old man.
Right.
Right. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, watch this.
Heard of thumbs up being.
Here's the thumbs up thing. Like, between you and me, if I said, "Hey Maggie, have a great day, see you later," and stuff like that. But if you said, "Hey, have a great day," and I went like this, it's the attitude that that some people perceive that as. It's just like, okay, whatever. So who knew that the thumbs up, and I suppose that's the issue, is the context, the way that that millennials have received a thumbs up must just be writing it off like, okay, whatever. And so that's how they've received it. So they see the thumbs up as an FU is what they, I've seen a video recently that said that. And I was just like, it's context. So I can see how that, but at the same time, I just go, guys, get over it, because it's a thumbs up. Now, if someone gives you a thumbs up with the context of whatever, or FU, or, stuff like that, then that is what it is. But, then therefore decide, when my grandpa gives me a thumbs up, that it means FU. It's just like, it's your grandpa, that's not the context. So to oversimplify the context.
Well, there's that. And then there's also having the associate's favorite cement. So that's the equivalent of picking your battles, but also that can be a really great relationship builder. I had one publisher, he's passed now, which makes me sad. So I'm gonna have a moment for Greg McConnell. I'll say his name. He's a great teacher and mentor for me. Very serious man. And I was very bubbly. He taught me so much about publishing, and he was doing budgets, and he was really, really serious and not real happy about it either. And I came floating in like I did, bouncing around, and he said he was doing budgets, so don't bother him. And I said, oh, I want a pony, as a joke, which, if you just picture a room full of news people, right, Chad? Like, I was quite a tour de force. So a week goes by and I get a calendar of ponies on my desk. That little tiny move. Yeah. Tell me I wouldn't work for that man. I gave it everything I had. He met my stupid little sense of humor.
Yes.
So a favorite cement, that could mean the world to somebody. And even if it doesn't seem to on the surface, it does. It means you see them and you hear them, which Surprise, surprise, Maggie's practice is based around being seen and heard.
Well, now, Maggie, I need to flip this around because I need to better understand. And I think I understand it a little, but I acknowledge my bias. How does this cost the associate?
That's a really good question. And I'm actually curious what associates think about themselves. The way that I see the shared cost is I cannot give you the kind of per diem that you'll get at a DSO. I simply can't. We're insurance driven PPO practice. What I can give you in my time, you'll never get at a DSO. And then what ends up happening is they'll be lured in by these ads of earn $300,000 in a year, which I don't know how accurate they are, because some of them, at least around where we are, is all Medicaid driven practices where you get $58 for a filling. So how many fillings do you have to make at 30% in order to take home $300,000? I mean, it just does, the math doesn't make sense, but they'll be lured in and they'll stay there for that per diem. And it might be a handsome per diem, and it might be $800, $900, $1,200. I don't know, depending on the area, but the per diem expires after a year. And so what ends up happening is then they'll sign another contract where they don't have a per diem, they earn on production, and their production completely plummets. They're taking not a whole lot home. If they can get out of the contract, which often I don't think they can, they'll go find another clinic where they're making a per diem. Right now, granted, and this is why I really want to know what the other side is thinking. These kids are coming out with substantial loans, right? I mean, their debt could equal some of the debt that we carry for practice ownership. In terms of how much they have to spend a month on it. And so it's very hard to ask an associate, give up this really safe per diem to work with me for less, but I will teach you. And the thing is that when you have to earn, when you have to, how do they say it? When you have to eat what you kill. You kill much more efficiently and much faster. Right. So
when it's producing time and you don't have anything in the refrigerator, all of a sudden, cutting the grass in your lawn and making it your vegetable for the night sounds a lot more delicious, when you don't have anything to eat.
If someone's paying you $1,200 and you're being asked to ask for reviews and referrals and you don't feel comfortable doing that, are you going to do it? No, you're getting paid $1,200. But if you're taking home $300 because you've had a slow day, you are going to start asking that. And that translates into significant financial stability 5 years or even less than that, a year after that, within that mentorship, I would think.
So if I did understand the article right, basically it's the opportunity cost that the associate loses out on. That's part of their equation. It's not necessarily like
they're not writing a check,
dollars out of pocket. Right. And something that I find interesting, like you said, I think it's a cousin idea to what you were offering, was that, if the associate sticks around for a year or two and then leaves, they also don't get to see their failures. They don't get to see the relationships build. They don't get to see, it's kind of like if someone dated, a different Barney, when he dated a different girl every week and on every episode of How I Met Your Mother, that it's just like, is he ever, or, Seinfeld that was even the joke. He always was dating someone new. Is he learning the depth of a relationship without going in, with only seeing a girl twice? And then, Jerry, he's like, oh, they have small hands, or, she had too big of hands and stuff like that. It's just like, that's what you're going to base it on. But this is like dating, because the associate can get up and leave. I've had, sadly, I think this is my 8th associate that's working with me right now, over 19 years. I know it sounds horrible, but I can get someone to stick around for 2 or 3 years, sometimes 4 or maybe 5. But I've never had anyone purchase in. And so then you stop and you go, okay, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my scenario? What's wrong with them? So like, do you put it 100% on me, 100% on them, or 100% on the scenario? It's like, okay, each situation is going to be, 30, 40, 20, right? Or 20, 80, 0, or, something like that. It's going to be a different percentage. So my question then to you is, do you see it like that, that it's opportunity cost for the associate, and then also be, part of that opportunity cost is the lost potential of of owning a practice, because now they start over. What do you do, this start over 20 times and then your career is over? You can only do it so many times before then you realize you're an old maid, that didn't get married, didn't have kids. And that might sound cool and all, but like at some point you're going to be like, shoot, I wish I would have put down my roots. Your thoughts?
I think that this generation is a little bit different, and I'm generalizing once again.
Sure.
And I, like this generation or this next generation that comes after us old people, they're not interested in owning a home.
Yeah.
They're okay living in apartments, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they just have a different outlook on things. And I think these associates are the same way. They're not necessarily always looking for ownership. At least when I was interviewing, I was asking that question, because then, Chad, the question becomes, and if we're just being, again, completely transparent, we can sell our practice to a DSO for 2 or 3 times what we can sell it to an associate.
Sure.
Right. And so when I was interviewing an associate and they said, well, is there an opportunity to buy in? I would say, I'm going to be honest with you and say, I don't know. Probably no, unless you wanted to go in once down the road, if we ever go with a DSO.
Yes.
But yes, everything that you're saying is correct. I think this relationship works if both sides, and this is every relationship, if both sides understand what they're giving up. I am asking you to give up an opportunity to purchase a practice. I am asking you to give up an opportunity to earn more, but in return, I will build you up. And I will show you what's possible, and even reducing the isolation in dentistry because some of these DSOs, they'll have dentists practicing, by them. Now, imagine being a new dentist. Well, you did it, but being a new dentist and then just doing everything by yourself.
Right.
I always had a partner. It was so much easier. But that's scary too. Having someone, when you've had a bad day, sitting with someone and having that other person put it in perspective, so you're not beating yourself up.
Yep. It's tough. Regan, your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts. Victoria coins me as the intrapreneur, which I'm definitely an intrapreneur, because owning a business requires so many facets of yourself and your time, and you do have to be fully prepared to embark on that journey. And so there's a choice. Like, I almost felt like pulling out a sheet of paper right now and just, if I was a dentist, start writing down things. The autonomy, obviously. What happens when you want to buy a Yomi or a laser? How does that work? How do you have that discussion with a person? All of a sudden, I feel like I'm losing control in that sense. Like, I'm going to have to get someone else's buy-in. I'm going to have to do a lot of work to that. So there can be downsides to being an associate. On the other hand, if you are full owner, you have the administrative duties to do it. You have the lease of the building. You have all the business aspects of the practice as well, which means you don't have as much time to devote to maybe furthering your CE. Maybe you want to be a real CE junkie and you want to go deeper and deeper and deeper into clinical. It's like a give and a take. And I think it's actually more complicated than I realized. For me personally, it was a very easy decision. Once I met PDA, I was like, this makes sense. I can grow in every direction I want. I can take whatever courses I want. The growth was limitless for me. And I don't have to worry about the aspects of ownership full on. So that made it an easy choice to me. Maggie, to your point, I don't know if people right now are truly okay with owning apartments, I think, or renting apartments. I think it's that they can't afford to buy the houses. I know in my little pocket up here in the Northwest, it is at least $500,000 to get in now. And when I bought a house at 23, 24, it was $115,000. And I thought that was insanely high. And and the wages haven't shifted enough to kind of flow with it.
Yep.
So I don't know if it's a desire or if it's more of this is what's happening. And if I'm correct, I think a lot of hedge fund companies bought up real estate markets as well. And I think I should go back and look this up. I always say this, Chad, because then I'm like, now I have to go check. I think at an economic forum that the new theme or whatever was, everybody owns nothing and you're happy with that. And so there's a piece of me that's very rebellious. And there's a piece that says, keep that autonomy going strong, or do something different. So if you create a group, do something different that honors the entrepreneurial spirit and allows them to be entrepreneurs. Those are my thoughts.
There's a lot to be said for finding a home like you did.
Yeah.
Without the very heavy burden that comes with ownership and the risk of not making it work, right? Because when we have a slow month, and we did, you have to pay everybody, and
yes,
you come last, and there's a risk. There's a risk to that. As an associate, you'll get paid, right?
If the associate and the owner could have the EQ and the understanding of each other. I mean, I just think
that's where relationships are born, right? When it's like, how do men and women get together and, get married and have relationships? It's like, equal understanding, a little forgiveness, a little interest in each other, like it's some simple, flour ingredients and chocolate chips and stuff like that,
so simple.
To some degree it is. And yeah, it's simple and complex all at the same time. But when you treat it like a transaction, it's going to be rough. Maggie, you'll love this. When you treat it like a transaction, it'll be rough. But when you treat it like a relationship, it can be beautiful.
That's perfectly said. That's perfectly said. There you go. There's your one-liner.
That's right.
Yeah.
We can end on that. Maggie, final thoughts.
I'm speechless. I think I'm speechless because Chad just put a bow on it. It really does come down to relationships and finding a practice where you can have, someone give you the guidance, and the grace and the understanding and the mentorship. It is really a diamond in the rough. There's not that many, especially significantly talented clinicians that give that away, right? We're tired by the time we get to our late 40s. We just want to go home, and have someone else take over. But be grateful for the opportunity that you're given when you work with a seasoned doctor who is able and willing to hold your hand. And for the seasoned doctor that is doing the hand holding, understand that, you're making a significant commitment financial to this person, and give it all you can. I mean, it's funny because my associate asked me for the cement, and I'm like, oh, how much is it going to cost me? How much is it going to cost me? I'm paying $100,000. I think I could spend an extra $50 on the cement, right? So I mean, I think keeping it all in perspective, and respect towards one another, understanding, giving each other grace, just like you said, are the ingredients of having that relationship work out.
That's right. Regan, I have a thought on that is when if I were an associate, or if an associate came to me and said, Chad, how could I use some magic sauce on my old jaded owner? I would say, remember that he is 8 associates in. So like a dating relationship, if this is the person you want to marry, but they've been through 8 bad relationships, remind them, hey, you're worth it. Can we be transparent? Can you give me that grace, and find ways to be like, can you give me, can you connect with me like it was your first love, like it was your first date, and that then magic can happen. But don't be jaded that it took you 8 tries and this 8th one could be the success, like fall down 7 times, get up 8. Like, can you, and I don't know what that wording would look like specific to a particular circumstance, but it would be telling the associate to find a way to invite the jaded owner to pretend like it's the first love. That's all.
I've met both of your associates. They're keepers, by the way. And so are both of you.
Yes, I love Dr. Ryan.
Thank you. This has been an amazing episode, and can't wait to have you again, Maggie, on our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Listeners, thanks for coming in today to Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed the show today, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on Regan and my book review. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Everyday Practices Podcast. Chad and I are here every week thanks to our community of listeners just like you, and we'd love your help. It would mean the world if you can help spread the word by sharing this episode with a fellow dentist and leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Do you have an extraordinary story you'd like to share or feedback on how we can make this podcast even more awesome? Drop us an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts from Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentist.com/podcasts. See you next week.